The country on the West African coast called Ghana is hardly the place one expects a true Cold War espionage drama to play out. It had no Berlin Wall, no missile sites. In truth, it was just a nation of gold mines and cocoa plantations trying to find its way after independence in 1957. But it was in its capital city, Accra, that Ghana became a Cold War battleground in the proxy war between the United States and Soviet Union as they competed for the soul of an entire continent. This silent war raged for years, with neither side giving an inch. But then, disaster. It was a textbook honeytrap operation that obliterated America's intelligence network across West Africa. Ghanaian intelligence services engineered a sophisticated romance targeting the most vulnerable point in any spy operation: the human heart. All it took was one charming operative targeting a lonely American woman on assignment for the CIA. 18 months of seduction and manipulation ended in the complete destruction of the CIA's presence in Ghana. This is the story of Sharon Scranage, which was yet another devastating blow for American intelligence in the infamous Year of the Spy that was 1985. Spies and double agents operate their form of intelligence warfare in the shadows, but it always takes brute force on the front lines of battle to win a war. This brings me to the sponsor of this video, War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game out there, free to play right now on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile. With over 2,500 historically accurate tanks, aircraft, helicopters, and ships from 10 major nations spanning nearly a century of military technology, you're getting an unmatched depth of content that any military history enthusiast will appreciate. What sets War Thunder apart is its incredibly sophisticated damage model. Every vehicle is modeled down to individual components: engines, fuel tanks, ammunition, crew members, all vulnerable to realistic damage. When a vehicle is destroyed, the X-ray view shows you exactly what happened, where the shell penetrated, which systems failed, and what caused the final destruction. Whether you prefer fast-paced arcade mode, balanced realistic battles, or the ultimate challenge of simulator mode, there's a gameplay style for everyone. Combined with stunning realistic graphics and authentic sound effects, War Thunder places you right at the helm of history's most powerful war machines. What I personally love is the VR support on PC that delivers one of the most immersive, heart-pounding combat experiences you'll find in gaming today. Click my links in the description or pinned comment to join over 95 million players worldwide playing War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile. New players and returning players who haven't logged in for 6 months will receive a massive bonus pack on PC and consoles, including multiple premium vehicles, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account time. This offer is only available for a limited time, so don't miss out. Sharon Marie Scranage was born in October 1955 in King George County, Virginia. Her life was equal parts church and farming. Sharon grew up where everyone knew everyone. Her father Perry worked at the U.S. Naval Service Weapons Center in Dahlgren, then at the Marine Base in Quantico. This was solid government work with a steady paycheck. The Scranage family owned 19 parcels of land scattered across King George County. Their roots were planted deep in American soil, stretching back over a century. Every Sunday, Sharon's voice rose with the Little Ark Baptist Church choir. Her friends would later say that choir and the church were practically her entire life. At King George High School, she cheered at football games and joined the Student Cooperative Association. After graduating in 1974, she headed to the National Business College in Roanoke. 2 years of secretarial studies and a brief 15-month marriage to a security guard later, Sharon was looking for a new start and for something bigger than King George County could offer. That's when the Central Intelligence Agency came calling. The CIA recruited Sharon as a clerk stenographer in its Office of Imagery Analysis. As a department within the Directorate of Intelligence, the function of the OIA was to analyze imagery collected by reconnaissance platforms. This was primarily satellite systems, and before that, photographs captured by the U-2 and SR-71 aircraft. For 7 years, she processed documents, typed reports, and filed classified materials. The reports she typed were circulated throughout the US intelligence community, supporting everything from arms control verification to crisis monitoring. For Sharon, the work was routine, but it came with a security clearance and access to America's deepest secrets. Her supervisor saw a reliable, church-going woman from a good family, someone who would never cause any trouble. They were catastrophically wrong. In December 1983, Sharon Scranage arrived in the humid West African city of Accra, the capital of Ghana. At 28, she had finally escaped small-town Virginia for an assignment that sounded exotic: Operations Support Assistant at the US Embassy in Ghana. While her role remained clerical, she was then working under diplomatic cover within the CIA's Directorate of Operations, the clandestine side of the agency. She typed up and handled documents that identified CIA informants inside Ghana, as well as all manner of reports and memoranda. CIA embassy outposts in the former colonial territories were far smaller than their First World counterparts, making operational compartmentalization more difficult. Sharon was the sole support assistant in the Accra station, which meant that she had unusually deep access to operational files. Although she was not a trained operations officer, she had almost the same level of access. And what Sharon didn't fully grasp was that she had landed in the middle of a Cold War battlefield. 2 years earlier, in 1981, Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings had seized power in Ghana's second military coup. His Provisional National Defense Council was flirting with socialist policies, establishing worker councils, and turning to Moscow for support. Ghana's strategic location, vast gold reserves, and cocoa plantations made it a prize both superpowers desperately wanted to control. The Americans were growing increasingly more anxious. Here was another African nation potentially falling into the Soviet orbit, just as Angola and Mozambique had done. The CIA maintained an extensive spy network inside Ghana's government and military, having at least 8 high-ranking officials secretly feeding intelligence to Langley. Captain Kojo Sikata, Ghana's intelligence chief, knew exactly what the Americans were up to. Educated at Britain's Sandhurst Military Academy and battle-tested in liberation wars across Africa, Sikata was no amateur. He had served with guerrilla movements in Congo, Mozambique, and Angola. This was a man who understood exactly how the Cold War game was played, and he was about to play it masterfully. Michael Sissoudis cut a striking figure in Accra's diplomatic circles. Born in April 1946, he was the son of a French-Ghanaian mother and a Greek father. At 37 years old, he was handsome and fluent in English with an American accent that turned heads. He had been raised in West Germany, educated in New York City, and had married and divorced an American woman. He held permanent US residency, but he remained African and Ghanaian at heart. What the embassy's social circuit didn't know was that Sissoudis was Captain Sikata's secret spy weapon. Sissoudis was related to Jerry Rawlings himself. Apparently the two men were cousins. His Western education wasn't accidental. It was preparation for his future career in espionage. His playboy lifestyle was equal measures of indulgence and operational cover. His natural charm was his weapon, turning him into a veritable African James Bond. On the other hand, Sharon Scranage, while excited for her new opportunity, had arrived in Ghana an emotional wreck. She quickly became homesick and lonely. Feeling isolated, her colleagues noted that she often broke down into tears at work. She had left behind her social and emotional support structures in the US and was vulnerable. Ghanaian intelligence, the Bureau of National Investigations, or BNI, was always alert to new arrivals at the US Embassy and assessed American staff for possible weaknesses. In Sharon, they quickly recognized that she met the perfect criteria for recruitment. She had broad access to classified materials, and they knew that she was lonely, inexperienced, and most likely susceptible to flattery and affection. Intelligence services call it a honeytrap. Seduce the target, build emotional dependency, then extract classified information. It's one of the oldest tricks in the espionage playbook, and Sesudis was a master practitioner. Just a few days after her arrival in Accra in 1983, Sharon Scranage was introduced to Michael Sesudis at a diplomatic reception. The Baptist girl from rural Virginia was swept off her feet by the sophisticated man of the world. He was everything King George County never offered: classy, educated, and exciting. When he paid attention to her, he really paid attention, and she felt something she had never experienced. While Sharon was falling in love, Michael was going to work. The affair began innocently enough. Dinner dates, long walks along Accra's beaches, and that sort of thing. For Sharon, it was the romance she had dreamed about since high school. For Sesudis, it was his first steps in a carefully orchestrated intelligence operation. By November 1983, the relationship was getting serious, at least in Sharon's mind. She became increasingly withdrawn from her CIA station colleagues as she spent more and more time with her new boyfriend, Michael. One evening during a dinner party hosted by Sharon at her home, a U.S. Office of Security officer spotted a major red flag. Positioned prominently on Sharon's vanity mirror was a photograph of a man whom the officer recognized instantly. The photo was also intimate, picturing Sesudis shirtless in bed, looking directly at the camera. As Sharon fell more deeply in love, her discretion fell by the wayside. She started to meet openly with Michael in public, knowing full well that he was in some way connected to Ghanaian intelligence. Her meetings, naturally, had not gone unnoticed. That same month, in November 1983, Ghanaian officials complained to the US Embassy that someone matching Sharon's description had been holding secret meetings with Ghanaian citizens. Sharon was immediately called in for a discussion, but instead of being ordered to end the relationship and going against all protocols, the CIA station chief in Accra instead only advised Sharon to be careful and that she should consider gradually breaking off the relationship. Sharon, of course, ignored the warnings completely. The relationship only deepened, with Sharon becoming increasingly emotionally attached and dependent on the affection given to her by Michael. As the months continued, Sesudis tightened his control, beginning to exert more pressure on Sharon to provide him information about her job. Perhaps Sharon was reluctant at first, we just don't know. But ultimately, she was convinced that telling Michael all that she knew about CIA operations as it came across her desk was not an act of betrayal, but rather proof of her love and trust. Over the next 18 months, Sharon provided Sesudis with classified material ranging from the list of names and identities of all the CIA informants in Ghana that she knew of, and details about CIA operational plans and future activities. She also shared information about CIA communications equipment and technical capabilities. Most crucial of all for Ghana's leader, Sharon passed on information about a dissident group's planned coup against Rawlings' government. Captain Sikata understood the goldmine of information he had been handed by Michael Sesudis. What he received didn't stay in Accra. It was passed on to Havana, Tripoli, East Berlin, and to the Soviet Union itself. From Cuba's intelligence service to Libya's revolutionary government, East Germany's Stasi and the KGB, America's Cold War enemies then had a detailed blueprint of CIA operations throughout West Africa. The compromise spread like cancer through US intelligence networks. Communication channels were blown, safe houses were exposed, recruitment methods were revealed. Years of careful intelligence work had evaporated, almost overnight. The CIA just didn't know it yet. The 8 men exposed by Scranage held positions ranging from the CEO of Ghana's National Procurement Agency to a senior-ranking officer in Ghana's military, the former chief superintendent of police, and beyond. Ghana's BNI didn't move immediately on the 8 men. They chose instead to bide their time and to see what other valuable information Michael could extract from Sharon. Sharon, lost in her romantic haze, had no idea of the devastation she was causing. She believed she had found true love with a man who understood her in ways no one from King George County ever could. That could not have been further from the truth. In May of 1985, Sharon's assignment in Ghana came to an end. She returned to CIA headquarters in Langley for routine reassignment processing. Standard procedure called for a polygraph examination. This was usually a formality, but in Sharon Scranage's case, it proved her downfall. Say what you will about the polygraph, but the moment she was hooked up to the sensors, Sharon's world imploded. She wasn't a trained intelligence officer and had no idea how to beat the machine. She was stressed when she took the test, and her physiological response clearly showed it. The CIA polygraph operator quickly determined that she was being deceptive in her responses. This triggered an internal review during which Sharon Scranage admitted to the CIA that she had been handing over classified information to a Ghanaian gentleman. After this admission, the FBI took over. For days, she was interrogated in sterile government offices. Sharon, raised to respect authority and tell the truth, broke down completely, confessing in detail all that she had done. The FBI agents listening to her confession realized they were dealing with yet another catastrophe in American intelligence. But Sharon's cooperation had given them an opportunity. She had agreed to help set a trap for her lover. On the 10th of July 1985, Sharon Scranage sat nervously in a room at the Springfield Holiday Inn. FBI agents were positioned throughout the building, watching, waiting. Michael was traveling in the United States at the time, and Sharon, under the direction of the CIA, had lured Michael to the hotel under the pretense of a personal rendezvous, and so that she could share important information with him about her new position at CIA headquarters. When Sesudis entered the room, he was expecting, among other things, to collect more American secrets. Instead, federal agents swooped in and made their arrest without incident. The next day, on the 11th of July 1985, Sharon was also formally arrested and charged with 18 counts, including espionage, conspiracy to commit espionage, and breaching the Intelligence Identities Protection Act. Michael, on the other hand, was indicted on 8 counts of espionage for soliciting and possessing classified information on CIA assets and operations. Sharon's case was quite different to all the other spying scandals that plagued American intelligence that year. Her spying had not been about money or ideology. This had been about a lonely woman who was out of her depth and had fallen in love with the wrong man. Meanwhile, back in Ghana, news quickly broke about Michael's arrest, and an international diplomatic incident was about to boil over. The BNI moved quickly, rounding up all 8 of the compromised CIA informants by the end of July that year. In October 1985, Sharon pleaded guilty to 3 charges, 1 count of espionage and 2 counts of disclosing CIA personnel identities. Judge Richard Williams sentenced her to 5 years in federal prison. But the judge had also made an unusual recommendation for sentence reduction, noting the disparity between Sharon's involvement in the conspiracy as compared to that of its mastermind, Michael. Sharon also agreed as part of the plea deal to testify against Michael. Sesudis, on the other hand, pleaded no contest to espionage charges during closed proceedings. He was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Behind the scenes, diplomatic wheels had already been spinning. The 8 Ghanaian CIA informants arrested in Ghana as a result of the breach were facing sentences ranging from 25 years to life imprisonment. The US State Department knew that these men would most likely die in Ghanaian prisons unless something dramatic was done. The deal that was struck was a classic of Cold War espionage, a good old spy swap. The United States was prepared to hand over Sesudis in exchange for the 8 Ghanaian CIA informants. Eventually, Ghana agreed. The informants were stripped of their Ghanaian citizenship and handed over to US officials. Sesudis' sentence was promptly reduced to time served, with the condition that he had to leave the United States immediately, which, of course, he did. On the 3rd of December 1985, Michael Sesudis stepped off an aircraft in Accra to a hero's welcome. Thousands of Ghanaians cheered for the man who had outsmarted the CIA. He was heralded as a successful spy and became a symbol of African success. A case of David versus Goliath, where Ghanaian intelligence triumphed over Western interference. Sesudis later entered politics, co-founding the Eagle Party within Rawlings's National Democratic Congress in 1992. His seduction of an American CIA employee was celebrated as a masterstroke of intelligence warfare. For Captain Kojo Tsikata, the operation had been an unqualified success. He had penetrated the CIA's West African network completely, demonstrating that African intelligence services could outmaneuver their Western counterparts. The intelligence gathered through Sharon had flowed to Ghana's allies across 3 continents. Jerry Rawlings's government had been strengthened by knowing exactly who had been working against them. The planned coup was thwarted before it even began. Ghana had been a target of American intelligence operations since its independence in 1957. Later declassified documents confirmed direct CIA involvement in the 1966 coup that had overthrown President Kwame Nkrumah. This history had made Ghana's intelligence services particularly vigilant about Western espionage activities. This was in part a reason for its alignment with the Soviet Union. By the mid to late 1980s, Ghana's collapsing economy forced a pivot. Rawlings abandoned his socialist experiments and embraced IMF and World Bank-led structural adjustment programs. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 accelerated Ghana's realignment with the West. In 1992, Ghana adopted a new constitution and shifted from military rule to multi-party democracy, with Rawlings recasting himself as an elected civilian president. Today's reality is a far cry from the Cold War fears of permanent Soviet and communist influence. This outcome notwithstanding, the damage to US intelligence capabilities in West Africa lasted for years. Beyond the immediate loss of 8 high-level informants, the compromise had revealed operational methods, communication systems, and recruitment techniques that needed complete overhauling. As for the 8 CIA informants, they and their families were quietly relocated to the USA. For obvious reasons, the details of where they ended up and what they may be up to today has been kept secret. In April 1986, Sharon's sentence was reduced to 2 years. She ultimately served only 8 months at the federal women's prison in Alderson, West Virginia. The judge in the case said that the court doesn't believe either the citizens of the United States or Miss Scranage are going to profit from her remaining warehoused. From what can be gleaned online, Michael Sosudis passed away on the 4th of September 2024. The case of Sharon Scranage is unique among her contemporary spies because she was neither a greedy mercenary nor an ideological true believer. Without defending what she did or her acts of betrayal, she was just a lonely woman who had fallen for a sophisticated intelligence operation designed specifically to exploit her emotional needs. After her release, Sharon Scranage effectively disappeared from the public eye. She returned to King George County to a community that had watched their local girl become embroiled in an international spy scandal. Decades later, the Sharon Scranage espionage scandal has continued to influence intelligence training, diplomatic relations, and our understanding of Cold War dynamics in Africa. Enhanced security screening for new recruits became standard, with more rigorous background checks and psychological evaluations. Improved counterintelligence awareness training also helped personnel to recognize Honeytrap vulnerabilities. Stricter operational security guidelines clarified rules about personal relationships during foreign assignments. As much as intelligence agencies might try to guard against this sort of thing from happening in future, human nature, being what it is, makes total prevention impossible. Sharon Scranage was the spy story that nobody saw coming. A love affair shattered America's intelligence network and reminded the world that even the most ordinary people could find themselves at the center of extraordinary international intrigue. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check out the game for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile using my links in the pinned comment and description. New and returning players who haven't played in 6 months will grab that massive bonus pack with premium vehicles and other rewards on PC or consoles.